one, you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
Time to Turn was a fantastic line, but when it came to the Legends lineup, it was a bit of a mixed bag. Had some brilliant figures, don't get me wrong, but it also had some stinkers too. Now, if you were to guess what the best figure in that lineup would be, you'd probably get it wrong. It's not the Bumblebee, as we've discussed earlier in this marathon, and it's certainly none of the cassettes, although I will admit that the Eject/Rewind/Rumble/Frenzy molds did do amazingly, although it's still not the best one. No, the best one is the most unassuming fellow in G1, with a terrible G1 toy and an obnoxious character. Yet for some reason, he delivers one of the best Legends figures we've ever gotten. From Hasbro anyway. Like, Hasbro hasn't made a better Wheelie than this. Honestly, he is really surprising. Wheelie is not the easiest bot to get right in vehicle mode. He was a design from the '86 movie, meaning the character designs were done first and the toys were done later, which meant that the original toys were pretty jank, Wheelie especially so. As such, there's no original transformation to draw from, you have to make it from the ground up. The original '86 transformations don't work in the same way the Diaclone ones work. You can't draw inspiration from them, you really have to start from scratch. Combine that with the fact that Wheelie is a Legends figure at a limited $20 price point, this is not looking good design-wise. So you'd think this would be a piece of shit. I mean, it all lines up, it's not gonna work, right? Surprisingly, no, this turned out incredibly well. The sculpting and proportions are on the money. They have not sacrificed anything in this alt mode whatsoever. There's not a lot of mechanical detail, but there's enough to get the job done, especially with a bunch of grilled detail over here and over here at the front. But the best bit would easily have to be the paint. You've got wonderful silver at the front, and yes, my copy does have a bit of QC nonsense on the go, with one lopsided compared to the other, but it's nice that they painted both of those silver to begin with. You've got color correction on the side here with the orange. It doesn't look as good in person as it does on camera, but it still looks pretty damn good, and you've got silver on the side here too. So that works pretty damn well, and if you're wondering about the 5mm port, he doesn't come with any weapons, but that's just basically the 5mm port from the hand, so it's a nice double usage. They've gone absolute ham on the silver on the top, adding so much there, even on the sides here. Like, Jesus, they went all out. Yes, the separation with the seam lines isn't the best, but for a Legends figure, it does so insanely well. Now, the back section isn't the most clean. You can sort of see the head at the back there, but they've gone to the trouble of painting the lights at the back here orange and red, so you've got some lovely definition at the back instead of it just being a yellow strip of nothing. The front wheels are pinned, but sadly the back ones aren't. But one interesting thing is that they've reused the clear black plastic on the windshield and the wheels. It's a nice use of part separation, so they don't have to dedicate an entire sprue just to the wheels. And on the topic, as he is a Titans Return Legends figure, he does have the same gimmick as the Bumble we discussed earlier this marathon. But fortunately, you don't have to untransform it to access it. Showing it off with General Ramhorn, just so you can get a feel for how it works, all you gotta do is line up that tabs in there and it all just goes nice and easily. Just make sure the arms are out of the way and fold it up and it's all great. The only thing that really gets in the way is that the arms sometimes like to become untabbed, but it is such a minor thing on a $20 figure, and the fact it works at all is pretty commendable. Yeah, you can see I'm sort of having to tab that back in, but still, it's not that bad. Just the fact they were able to make this work at this scale at all is incredibly commendable. They had a monumentous task ahead of them, and they managed to do so almost flawlessly. It's a fantastic car mode, what can I say? Of course, we gotta show off some sizes, so let's get Ramhorn out of there. Bye-bye, come on, out you get. Jeez, they're so tiny, it's hard to get them out sometimes. Back you go, and get back in their arm, come on. Okay, let's size him up. He is 4.5 centimeters wide, 9 centimeters long, and 3 centimeters tall. And for sizes, here he is next to a standard Legion figure, a standard Core Class figure, a standard War for Cybertron Micromaster, and Crumbs. Now, when it comes to the transformation, the designers basically had the same problem as the vehicle mode. They had to make the design from the ground up since they couldn't rely on past engineering. And again, they fucking nailed it. First thing you want to do is bring the arms out like so. You also want to rotate the waist around 180 degrees so that it hides the diaper at the back there and makes a proper midriff. Otherwise, it'll get stuck later on. Now that that's done, you open up this section here and open up that section there. Come around to the top, you've got a double hinge here that rotates down and into place, and now you can see why we rotated that first, because that gets stuck back there. Still rotates, just it's not as smooth once it's kind of fold it up like that. Anyway, then you can bring in the top part and bring in the top part there. So you get a nice solid chest. Bring the forearms around like so into place, sort of like Bumble, but better. This part's a bit starty and stoppy, which I'm not the most fond of, but it still gets the job done. You bring the side panels down halfway, although you'll get to do the rest a bit later. Once those are out of the way, you can then bring around the side parts there, and that will open up the ball joints and allow you to bring the legs into place. Once that's done, you can then rotate these around and they actually clip into the backs of the legs like so. One of them doesn't do it as solidly, but it still gets the job done. That's mostly a QC thing though. And I've just realized, note, they're supposed to be the other way around. I keep rotating it the wrong way around. Whoopsie. Anyway, then you bring in the knee spikes like that. Nice and into place, nice and cohesive. Last but not least, you bring up the head around on the top like so, and it just sits there nice and solidly. And in robot mode, I don't know what to say. It's just a fantastic wheelie. There are limitations thanks to the size class, like a bit of kibble on the arms and a bit of unfinished legs, but for the most part, it does an amazing job. The head sculpt is absolutely on point, no problems there. They've captured the helmet perfectly. The face doesn't have as much personality as the movie, but let's be real here, the movie's kind of annoying, so that's not really that much of an issue. The chest works really well. I could have asked for an outline on it, tamper-graphed on, but given the budget, I understand why they didn't. And hey, at least it is better than the Takara version, which went for completely clear plastic. Because that's a great idea, yeah, make all of this stuff underneath it completely visible. Fantastic. The way the waist rotates around to get that new midriff in place, that new waist section, works really, really well. The legs are also done incredibly well with nice chunky thighs and paint that is revealed on the shins just for this mode. Because in the car mode, it's around like that and you can't really see it, but in the robot mode, nope. Completely visible there. They didn't have to add that paint, but they did, and I greatly appreciate it. Even the shoulders are done well with nice mass and some lovely paint on show. They're not just completely random blocks of yellow, which I really like. And yes, he does have a bit of kibble on the forearms, or rather, his forearms are kibble with a sort of strut forearm there. But it doesn't look as good as some other examples I've taken a look at over this marathon, this particular December. It is done much better than that, and I massively commend them for that. In terms of complaints, yeah, there are some issues. The back's a bit hollow there and you got these parts just sticking out there. But it's a $20 Legends figure. I mean, what you gonna do? The fact they managed to incorporate a transformation that clever to begin with is really commendable. And is posable too, with a nice swivelly head, ball joint at the shoulders and at the elbows, the aforementioned waist swivel thanks to the transformation. A waist swivel on a Legends figure, that's something else. Well, a waist swivel on a $20 Legends figure that Hasbro releases. And you got thighs over here with ball joints and ball joints at the knees that look pretty natural. So he's got pretty much all of it. Just, he does everything fantastically. Decent sculpting, fantastic paint. Especially for a Hasbro release. This isn't a Takara release. They don't have that extra budget. In fact, it looks better than the Takara version overall. The color scheme, the color breakup is much better. Fantastic articulation, brilliant transformation. What else is there that you could ask for? Well, one other thing. So, y'all remember this piece of shit, right? Let's just sit that on the ground because no one cares about it. This is Studio Series Wheelie, an action master in a permanent sitting pose designed to be used with Studio Series 86 Grimlock. It is absolute garbage and I won't defend it in any way. So, is this a better Wheelie overall with better compatibility? Well, here's a funny thing. Thanks to the way Wheelie transforms, they cannot fit a stand port at the back there. It's an unfortunate little caveat with the transformation, but he is quite similar to Nor in some regards. With Time to Turn Nor, they desperately wanted to put in a stand port, and they were going to put it in there. Didn't matter how they were going to do it, and Wheelie kind of does the same. As you can look at the thighs here, and it's right there. Thighs aren't hollow too, which is nice, but let's take a look at that little port there. That is a fully functioning stand port. No tricks, no random tips, no mistransformations. It's just a stand port on the side there that you can kind of use in some situations. Does it work the best? No, but is it cool that he has that to begin with? Absolutely, although not for the reasons you might think. Although I have to point out before that it's kind of funny he's using a Decepticon badged stand. One of my friends is gonna love that if he ever watches this, but he hates Wheelie, so he probably won't.
Curse you, Hasbro! Curse you!
Now, I absolutely love Studio Series Grimlock. Admittedly, I've had my complaints about the line overall, but Grimlock is the shining star among them. He is near perfect, with two small caveats. The lack of a sword, which can be fixed with the non-F version, and of course, Wheelie. Like, the only reason I haven't reviewed this fellow is because I can't think of a good script idea. I would be gushing over him for about 20 minutes, but it wouldn't really be that interesting. If I can figure out an angle, I'm definitely going to cover him one day. But the point is, he's got two flaws, the sword and wheelie. Now, unfortunately, there is no way to plug in Titan's Return wheelie into robot mode because it uses a port there, which requires the tiny little peg on one of the legs of SS86 wheelie. I'm sure someone could make an adapter for Titan's Return wheelie, but it doesn't work right out of the box. However, that's only for the robot mode. And to be honest, not many people display wheelie with Grimlock in robot mode. Most people associate that with the dinosaur mode. So how does wheelie attach to Grimlock in dino mode? Well, you'll take a look at the sides of the head and you'll notice two little pegs here. But hang on a second, those are the same width as an average stand port. And that got me thinking, what if you could get wheelie onto Grimlock? Well, Titan's Return wheelie, because we don't acknowledge Studio Series wheelie as a wheelie. Should have just been a sword on that release. But if you take a look at this, it's not the most sturdy port, and you have to have one leg kind of sitting at the back here, but it works. If you give this guy the slingshot, it works really well as a complete replacement. It is entirely unintentional, but just the fact he can do this really brings him up in my books. You don't need the expensive DNA kit to add a wheelie to this, even though I am still getting that. You can just go straight off the bat with an off-the-shelf Titan's Return wheelie. Or a Takara Legends wheelie, but I wouldn't really recommend that again. So now, these days, there's even more of a reason to buy him. He's a great figure in his own right, and he has compatibility with one of the best, if not the best, leader class figure in the past several years. So what more is there to say? Well, to be fair, you could say a few things about the sizing, since that's the last thing we need to cover. He is 7 centimeters wide thanks to the kind of ridiculous kibble on the outside here, but still it's not that cumbersome in person, and 9.5 centimeters tall. And of course, for comparisons, here he is next to a standard Legion figure, a standard Core Class figure, a standard War for Cybertron Micromaster, and crumbs. Even ignoring the Grimlock functionality, this is an absolute banger. It does everything it's supposed to, on top of the gimmick, and the gimmick doesn't render anything useless either. It just does a fantastic job all around. I can't think of anything else to change here. This is the wheelie to get in your collection. I mean, what other versions are there? The X-Transbox version that was so bad they had to make it twice? I can't really think of a better wheelie than this. It's just a perfect wheelie. And a perfectly Legends class figure too. The accuracy, yeah, I can take or leave, but the engineering is brilliant and the articulation is brilliant. Those two is all I really need. So go to whatever aftermarket system you choose, whether it be eBay, blech, or Facebook, just pick one and pick up a wheelie. You won't regret it. But that's enough Hasbro for a bit. Let's discuss some third parties, shall we? Tomorrow, I think it's time to go back to the beginnings of third-party Legends to see where it all began. It's a release that nobody truly forgets, a release that people still hunt down to this day, and for good reason. Tomorrow, the birthplace for third-party Legends. Make sure to tune in. See you there.